Samudra Manthan, and by understanding what went in that prominent episode, we'll also try and understand about how do we churn our inner conscious. So I'm going to draw some correlations. So let us explore now. I'm going to begin with the shloka Rahim. Avyasur bhuvanatreyam anibhrutam kandoranai adrina nidranasya parasya kurmavapusho निश्वासवातोर्मय यद्विक्षेपान संकृदोदादिभाय प्रेन्खोलपारण्यकिका नित्यारोहान निवृतो विहरते देव सहैव श्रिया. Now this is a shloka or a hymn that talks about how Lord Vishnu manifested himself as divine tortoise in order to save all the three worlds. So the meaning of the shloka talks about how Mahavishnu descended as a gigantic kurma bearing the mountain Mandara on his back. This entire episode was just to help the Devas acquire the divine Amrita, or it is also called as nectar of immortality. So here, as per the direction of Vishnu, the Asuras and Devas agreed to cooperate to churn the ocean of milk in order to obtain the Amrit. Now, as the churning progressed, quite a number of herbs got induced into it. And Mount Mandara was used as the churning rod. And snake Vashuki, the king of serpent, was used as the churning rope. As the churning progressed, there were quite a number of ratnas that emerged. So, to be precise, there were 14 ratnas that emerged out of the churning process. Now, these can be categorized in 3 divisions so that it will be easy to understand. So I'm naming all the 14 now, and then let's talk in detail about them. So the following ratnas emerged. They are Chandra, Parijata, Airavata, Kamadhenu, Madira, Kalpavriksha, the Apsaras or the nymph, Ukaishrava, goddess Lakshmi, Panchajanya, Vishnu's magic bow, Kaustuba, Dhanvantari and Amrita. Now in the beginning I said these 14 ratnas can be classified into different categories. Let us talk about the first 3 categories of goddesses. First is Lakshmi. So Lakshmi forms the divine consort of Lord Vishnu. So she is revered for fortune and wealth. And the second one to come out was Apsaras. Apsaras are the nymphs who chose Gandharvas as their consort. So, Romba Parishyamana Perda. You must have heard of the names like Ramba, Urvashi, Menaka, Tilotama. They were very popular not only for their beauty but also for their art. So, they chose Devaloka as their abode. And the third one is Varuni or Madira. See, Madira is supposedly the god of intoxication. And then, so the next category here are Kamadhenu, Airavata, Ushaishrava. So, Kamadhenu is also called as the wish-granting cow. So, Kamadhenu was given to the sages by Lord Vishnu so that the ghee extracted from it can be used for the yagams. And then Airavata. Airavata is the elephant that Indra is actually using. It is, this Airavata is said to possess 4 trunks. Just imagine an elephant with 4 trunks. And now this elephant is believed to connect the earth and the sky. And the third one here is the Uchaishrava. Uchaishrava is again the 7-headed horse, and it was given to Bali. So the description of the horse goes like this. It will be snow white in color, and it is called the king of horses. So the next classification is the classification of the gems that got produced during the Amrit Manthan. The first one here is the Kaustubha. Kaustubha is the crystal clear gem that can be found on the chestwood of Lord Vishnu. And then the Parijata, that is a tree that produces, Parijata maram, it will never wither. And it is supposedly the most fragmented flower. So it is also believed that Lord Indra took Parijata to the Devaloka. And then the Sharanga. So Sharanga is the master weapon, and the bow. The bow is called Sharanga. The other 3 Ratnas that emerged were Chandra and Dhanvantri. Dhanvantri emerged from the ocean holding the pot of Amrit in his hand. Again, Dhanvantri is an incarnation of Vishnu. So in the process of understanding the Samudra Manthan, so far we have understood, or we have covered 2 incarnations. The first one being the Kurma and the second one being Dhanvantri. Dhanvantri is the most, he is called God of medicines. So these are the 14 gems that emerged, and it was divided between people who took part in the humongous task. Now we have come to the important point. So when I spoke about the 14 gems that came out during churning, there's something called Hala Hala also came out during the churning, and that is the deadly poison that is representing the impurities. So what happened was, in order to protect the Devas at the behest of them, Lord Shiva immediately drank the poison. So, Parvati got alarmed and she clutched his neck in order to stop the poison descending down his throat. That is why, Shiva is also called as Nilakanta. And that's why, Shiva's neck is permanently blue. So this is one interpretation about Shiva consuming the deadly Hala Hala poison. So I spoke about 2 incarnations during Samudra Manthan. Now let's understand the third one. So during this process, that is the Samudra Manthan, the manifestation of Vishnu as Mohini happened. So Vishnu promised Devas that he will be protecting them and also ensuring that the Amrit doesn't get into the hand of Asuras. So these Asuras and Devas, though they agreed to cooperate, Lord Vishnu has to take a stance and he should protect all the 3 worlds. So if the Amrit gets into the hands of Asuras, then the entire world will be at stake. So what did Vishnu do? Lord Vishnu took the form of a beautiful damsel called Mohini, just to disturb the Asuras and get their concentration. Now, this Mohini, the incarnation of Vishnu, asked the Devas that they should be seated in the first row, and she deceived the Asuras saying the Amrit will be distributed equally. So, after giving them the direction as to where one should sit, Mohini started distributing the Amrit to Devas first. And there was one Ashura, he was very sharp, called Rahu. So what did Rahu do, or did? Rahu tricked Vishnu by disguising himself as one of the Devas and sat down with them. So, the sun god and the moon god revealed that, it is Rahu in disguise, and alerted Vishnu, and Vishnu through his Sudarshana chakra cut off Rahu's head. So Rahu still roams around. That's when the Rahu's head was cut off with Sudarshana chakra. That's when the Rahu and Ketu formed. Now, after completing the task of distributing the Amrit, Lord Vishnu again reappeared. And Ashura started fighting back because they felt completely cheated and humiliated. But still they didn't have that strength to overpower the Devas. So this is about Samudra Manthan. Now we are coming to the very important point. So Samudra Manthan shouldn't be understood only as a Hindu mythological text. Now it also helps us to draw correlations about how it is applicable even today, even on an individual setting. So let us try and understand that a little bit. Now the Samudra, or the ocean of the milk, here represents the human consciousness, which represents all the physical comforts, which represents the psychological struggles, which represents the emotional struggle. That is Samudra. The Mandara, the mountain which is used to churn the ocean of the milk, is more like your thoughts, the mind, your thoughts. So if you're going to apply good, or if you're going to overpower your thoughts with good things, then it will help you to have steadiness and concentration. If we keep allowing the mind to wobble, then it will ensure that we wobble and we don't get fixated. The third reference here is to the tortoise. When the mountain Mandara was about to sink, it was Lord Vishnu who took the form of Kurma to protect or to hold the mountain steady. So here the tortoise represents the spiritual withdrawal of a person into his own consciousness. So if we wanted to have liberation, we can do it only by withdrawing ourselves from the material realm and the material world we see. And then the Vashuki, the king of the serpent, which was used as the churning rope, can be understood that if at all, one has to be successful, it is not only important that he is establishing himself well. Rather, it talks about a social cooperation, social control, communal bonding. So, enlightenment and enrichment both at the individual level and at the group level. Now, this Devas and Asuras here represents the good and the bad, which is within us, not outside. During the Samudra Manthan, Vishnu advised the Devas to work along with the Asuras to churn the ocean. So similarly, what we can understand is, unless you know what the bad qualities in you, you won't be able to overpower the bad qualities by your good qualities. So, we all used to do this SWOT analysis, to understand our strength, weakness, opportunities and threat. If you have to understand what were our strength, then it means it is mandated that we understand the weakness and threats also. So the halahala, the deadly poison that was consumed by Shiva, educate us as to how we'll have to work with resilience. Nowadays these children give up if they don't get good marks. They don't mind taking away their lives. If they don't succeed in love, they wanted to commit suicide. If they don't succeed in marriage, they wanted to commit suicide. If they don't get a job opportunity which they desire for, again they give up. So this halahala, the poison that Shiva drank, is just not an incident. Rather, it is teaching us an important lesson that we'll be able, whatever may be the turmoil, no matter what kind of situations we are experiencing, no matter how life is treating us, we should always know how to combat it. So that calls for the resilience, the power in ourselves. And the 14 ratnas that we just spoke about that emerged from the churning process talks to us about, those are nothing but the temptations. As we progress in life, we'll be tempted in all best way possible. Some may be tempted with the need for power, somebody with money, somebody with strong affiliation towards other sex, somebody with the need for controlling others. The temptations can be just many, infinite. So whether are we going to fall a prey to it, or we are going to stand tall against it, talks about our psychic power, our individual self-control. And the Dhanvantri. So Dhanvantri, incarnation of Vishnu, embodiment of health and longevity, indicates that spiritual success or journey towards a spiritual realm can be made possible with a thorough understanding of not only his body but also the mind. If your intellect is dysfunctional but you have a strong body, you won't even be able to cognize the information. So here, another reference here is that of the enchanting Mohini. This Mohini, who symbolized or who deceived the Asuras, helps us understand that have your goals focused. The Asuras just gave up after seeing Mohini, who was the epitome of beauty. They focused. What was their goal? Their goal was Amrit. They deviated from the goal, due to which they lost. So now, how do we understand all this? All these are just not a mythological text that is teaching us about the avatars of Vishnu, not about the achievements of Devas. So all these texts have got some psychological relevance to each and every one of us, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the faith. Even if he is an atheist, I think he should be able to draw some correlations. As mind, we cannot argue and say that I don't have mind, then it means you are insane and lunatic. So with all the scriptures in hand, we are given us enough and more knowledge, and it is up to us to make the knowledge into an enlightening and scintillating experience, which is called wisdom. So this wisdom can be achieved only when we have a thorough understanding of what we are. As I've been always saying in all my sessions, unless we realize who we are, we won't be able to take up the path of where we wanted to go. So in order to bridge the gap between who we are and what we wanted to do, we'll also have to have the distinction between the realism and idealism. We wanted to be somebody, and the reality is we are somebody. So this bridge can be closed by submitting ourselves to the Lord and seeking in more knowledge, take the directions of Guru, and let us all be successful, not in this world but in the other world, that is the Sat. Thank you for listening. and have a blessed days ahead.